Ma'am.
Please provide a 5-second countdown.
5. Good afternoon. I call this hearing to order and a quorum is present. Before we begin, I'd like to ask unanimous consent for the members of the Washington delegation to participate in today's hearing, should they be able to attend. Without objection, so ordered. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. We have some members who are participating remotely today. Before we proceed, I'd like to go over some items for those members who are participating remotely. First, if you are experiencing connectivity issues, please make sure that you or your staff contact our designated technical support so those issues can be resolved immediately. Members participating remotely must continue to use the video function for the duration of their participation in the hearing unless they experience connectivity issues or other technical problems that render the member unable to fully participate on camera. It is committee and subcommittee policy that members participating remotely will remain muted when not recognized, just like turning on your microphone on and off during an in-person hearing. This is out of courtesy to all members on the committee and so that background noise does not interfere with another member who is recognized to speak. When you are recognized, you will need to unmute your microphone and pause for a couple of seconds before speaking so that we will be able to hear everything you say. In order to ensure everything members say is captured on the live stream of this hearing, I ask that members pause for 2 or 3 seconds before beginning to speak. If you wish to have a document inserted into the record, please ask for unanimous consent and have your staff email the document to veteransaffairs.hearings@mail.house.gov. It will be uploaded to the committee document repository. Without objection, members will be recognized in order of subcommittee seniority for questioning witness today. This will make it easier for me to ensure that all members participating have an opportunity to be recognized. Does any member have a question about the conduct of this hearing with members participating remotely? I now recognize myself for an opening statement. Before I begin, first of all, thank you for joining us today to take a look at the Department of Veterans Affairs' ongoing efforts to implement a modernized electronic health record. Before we go further, I would just want to extend my gratitude to Sarah Garcia, who is the staff director, Democratic staff director on this committee. She is going to be moving into the general counsel role. She'll still be on the Veterans Affairs Committee and helping with this project, but I just wanted to extend my gratitude to her for her leadership in this role. Well, much has changed since we last held our last hearing on the Electronic Health Record Modernization Program in March. At that time, we were just starting to become aware of the scale of the approaching global pandemic and could not foresee the dramatic impacts it would have on the world and obviously on this project. When we last met, we discussed the announced delay of the VA's planned March 28th go-live date, which I supported due to the clear need to address critical VA staff concerns about testing and training. At that time, VA's plan was to try again in July of 2020, which again had to be postponed, this time due to the COVID-19 and the need to redirect clinical staff to the pandemic response, and because VA program and contractor staff could not readily access the VA facilities. VA has informed us that its latest plan is to go live in Spokane on October 24th, 2020. However, other aspects of the EHRM program have changed besides the date, and I'd like to discuss in detail the impact of those changes. Today, I'd like to discuss the status of testing and training, staff readiness, and ongoing communication with the veterans that will be impacted by this project. Throughout this implementation, there has been a lot of back and forth about what system capabilities would be available at Go Live, And while the additional 7-month delay has changed that landscape somewhat, it has not alleviated the need to have a bifurcated rollout of capability sets. Now we're looking at capability set 1.1 in October and 2.0 in spring of 2021. As a result, VA has reshuffled its go-live schedule to focus on less complex facilities up front in VISNs 20 and 10 that can operate with capability set 1.1. I don't necessarily disagree with this logic. However, I have some questions about the plan, especially because one of the issues cited by the Secretary for the initial delay in February was due to certain capabilities not being ready at that time. Obviously, we want to stay agile in the pace of development, but we need to better understand the impacts of this approach at all sites. Further, we need to understand how rapidly and thoroughly the VA will be able to complete the current state reviews for upcoming facilities, address infrastructure findings, and prepare the staff at those facilities to implement a change that wasn't expected for several years. On August 21st, 2020, VA went live with the centralized scheduling solution at the Chalmer P. Wiley VA Ambulatory Care Center in Columbus, Ohio. This was the first VA go-live of a Cerner-based system, so of course I'm very interested to hear how that went. I'm not sure, though, that this event represents a true indication of the success of the EHRM go-live this fall. Columbus transitioned from a modern system to another modern system, not from VA's legacy VISTA scheduling system. I think it remains to be seen what the transition will look like when it's an EHR, not just scheduling, and when the transition is from a decades-old system to the Cerner Millennium. The Spokane Go Live will be more representative sample of what is to come. A year ago, we held a hearing on VA's scheduling system issues. At that time, OEHRM told us of its plan to decouple the CSS from the rest of the Millennium and accelerate that deployment across the country. The plan was to have the VA on a modern scheduling system in 5 years instead of 10. Now we're hearing, due to the pandemic, VA has decided to table the accelerated deployment of scheduling indefinitely and focus on the full EHRM deployment. I find this concerning as it does not address the true intent of the accelerated CSS employment. Since 2014, we've heard about the VA's struggles with wait times, secret wait lists, and access issues in the news and from veterans. 10 years is far too long for veterans to wait to have these issues addressed by the VA. So I hope to hear today what the VA's actual plan is going forward and how it intends to address the scheduling solution in order to address these long-standing challenges with assuring that veterans can access their timely appointments. The subcommittee has also been following up on the Department of Defense efforts to upgrade its health record through the MHS Genesis program, which is based on the same Cerner product that the VA is implementing. In July 2020, DoD sent Congress a follow-on operational testing and evaluation report on the MHS Genesis. And while the DoD approach to its deployment and change management process was handled somewhat differently from the VA's, I still have concern about the findings and what they foretell for the VA's implementation. This follow-on report, almost 3 years after DoD's initial go-live, cites ongoing deficiencies in business intelligence, billing, coding, and reporting, all of which are important business functions of health care. The report also states, quote, information exchange with the required external systems was sporadic, and the data were frequently inaccurate and incomplete, and that, quote, MHS and Alta users often could not see all of the required information using the Joint Longitudinal Viewer, the JLV, creating potential patient safety concerns, and eroding user trust in both the MHS Genesis and the JLV. This is very concerning. These information exchanges are the core basis of interoperability, which was Congress's main intent when authorizing these two programs worth over $20 billion in taxpayer money. Our witness panel today is Mr. Bill Tinston, the former program executive officer of MHS Genesis. So between him and the VA witnesses, I hope that they can provide some answers about these interoperability issues and how the VA and DoD plan to mitigate them. Also, I have major concerns about the cloudiness of VA's plans related to the veteran-facing portal. For years, VA has been extolling the virtue of My Healthy Vet patient portal. My Healthy Vet provides several functions that veterans have come to rely on, such as appointment scheduling and prescription refills. Now we're hearing that the VA has approved a task order that authorizes Cerner to modify its patient portal branded My VA Health for veterans at facilities using Millennium. I have major concerns about the parallel operation of two different veteran-facing portals and the possibility of a veteran having to remember when to access one portal versus the other. I'm not sure which of the portals is best for veterans, but I'm certain that maintaining both and expecting veterans to know the difference is not the right answer. Further current estimates to address the dual portal issue range from 18 to 35 months, which is a very long time at this point in implementation. I know my colleague, Ranking Member Banks, shares these concerns, and we need the witnesses to give us a better understanding of the plan, how it will impact veterans, and how VA is communicating these issues and changes with the veterans they serve. I have a lot of questions, obviously, and some concerns, but I'm hopeful that the VA is going to have a successful go-live on October 24th. It all comes down to the most important part of this entire project, which is patient safety. This is my #1 priority, and I expect and I know it is also the VA's. We should strive to prevent any harm to a veteran and to endeavor to mitigate known risks during the course of this momentous transition. Veterans have already sacrificed so much for this great country. Their safety in the VA's care is paramount. I thank all of the witnesses for appearing today, either in person or by WebEx, and for your work serving our veterans on this incredibly important project, and I look forward to hearing your testimony. I would now like to recognize my colleague, Ranking Member Banks, to deliver any opening remarks he may have. Mr. Banks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it feels like we've been here before, it's because we have. VA's road to initial operating capability in Spokane, Washington has been a long and winding road, to put it mildly. But after 3 delays, I am now confident that about 1 month from now, the Mann Grandstaff VA Medical Center will be using the Cerner Millennium EHR. As I said in our previous hearing, delaying the Spokane go-live was clearly a difficult decision for the Secretary to make. But I believed then, and I believe now, that it was the right call. The system was clearly not ready, and pushing it into production would have been irresponsible. I expressed my expectation that VA should use the additional months to achieve not just a relatively smooth go-live, but an excellent go-live. How well this extra time was spent will be apparent soon. I know significant strides were made, even with the added difficulties of the pandemic and wildfires. The additional time allowed Cerner to finish building the interfaces and enabled VA to improve its clinical workflows. On the other hand, while the training clearly improved, I do not believe the employees ever got to train on the actual system being installed. Cerner will need to improve upon the mock-up training system in the future. I understand that cut-over activities are ongoing, and the interplay between the remaining Vista modules and Cerner is still being worked out. This is a significant source of usability problems, and I hope VA and Cerner will prioritize fixing it even after go live. We are still delaying the consequences of splitting the Cerner EHR into an initial capabilities set and a final capabilities set. That decision was well intended, but it created a host of practical problems that the pandemic only magnified. I am glad that VA heeded our calls and pulled some key capabilities forward. I think this will meaningfully improve the system over what existed in March. That said, I hope future medical centers will have a single go live with the complete Cerner EHR. All in all, I'm cautiously optimistic about the Spokane go live. But as we approach the end of the beginning of electronic health record modernization and the program matures, I have some serious concerns about its future course. I do not think VA's process to develop the 10-year wave schedule is satisfying anyone. It is time to acknowledge that the sequence of 173 sites that was determined 3 years ago was an aspiration and a best guess. EHRM and MHS Genesis are now on completely different tracks. And because of the pandemic and the earlier decision to split the capability sets, VA has shifted its next region from California to the Midwest. Despite all this change, our witnesses seem hesitant to adjust other aspects of the schedule because of the notion that members of Congress somehow insist on never modifying it. I share my colleagues' interest in seeing the project finished as quickly as it's feasible, but members of Congress did not and should not have a role in developing this schedule. Going forward, the Veterans Health Administration needs to determine an updated schedule in a transparent, bottom-up fashion. Conditions in the medical center should determine it, not edicts from Washington. OEHRM cannot be determining requirements or interpreting VHA's priorities. VHA should borrow a page from DoD's playbook and put forward a more forceful, functional champion. Similarly, the 10-year cost estimate no longer withstands scrutiny. I have expressed my skepticism before about the numbers VA puts forward, but this cost estimate has become downright implausible. It defies reason that the budget would peak at $2.6 billion in fiscal year 2021, which begins tomorrow, and 2022, and then rapidly declines. Even under the best circumstances, the next 2 years will see a gradual ramp up of a few medical centers going live at a time. In contrast, VA plans to juggle simultaneous go-lives of entire VISNs in the final year of the project. That will cost more, not less. The Spokane go-live is an opportunity to reevaluate these old assumptions, and I hope VA makes the most of it. Finally, in all of this program's activities, it is crucial that Cerner add value by supplementing what already works well and replacing what does not. I firmly believe a rigid, best-of-suite model, meaning uniformity for the sake of uniformity, is likely to produce the best outcome. Thank you again, Madam Chair. With that, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. I will now introduce the witnesses we have before the subcommittee today. First is Mr. John Wyndham, who is the Executive Director of the Office of Electronic Health Record Modernization, or OEHRM, with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Mr. Wyndham is accompanied today with Dr. Laura Krupa, the Chief Medical Officer of OEHRM, and Mr. John Short, the Chief Technology and Integration Officer of OEHRM. Joining us via WebEx, we also have Dr. Robert Fisher, the Director of Mann Grandstaff VA Medical Center in Spokane, Washington, and Mr. Bill Tinston, the Director of Federal Electronic Health Record Modernization Program Office, as well as Mr. Travis Dalton, the President of Cerner Government Services. We will now hear the prepared statements from our panel members. I remind you to please pause for 2 to 3 seconds before speaking so that the recording can capture all your words, and please remember to do so also when answering members' questions. Thank you. Your written statements will be your written statements in full will be included in the hearing record. Without objection, Mr. Wyndham, you're now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Madam Chair Lee, Ranking Member Banks, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on behalf of the electronic health record modernization effort. I am accompanied, as you stated earlier, ma'am, by Dr. Laura Krupa, our Chief Medical Officer for the Office of Electronic Health Record Modernization, or EHRM, and Mr. John Short, our Chief Technology and Integration Officer. Dr. Robert Fisher, Medical Center Director for Mann Grandstaff VA Medical Center, is also on via WebEx. First, I want to thank you and the members of the subcommittee for your unwavering support of VA's EHR modernization initiative. Without your support, VA would not be able to deliver on this critical program in support of our veterans. The department is committed to providing the best care for our nation's veterans, including access to complete longitudinal medical record, interoperable with the Department of Defense and community care providers. VA's new EHR solution will improve access to quality care and enable seamless transfer of health care data as service members transition from the active duty to the veteran status. The initiative will enable the secure and sharing of information, improve care delivery and coordination, and provide clinicians with the data and tools to support patient safety. After our last appearance before the subcommittee in March of 2020, the coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic, caused a shift in the VA's healthcare operations. In support, OEHRM immediately shifted to a non-intrusive posture, providing flexibility to the VA clinicians responding to the increased patient demand and staffing requests. We never stopped working and achieved several functional and technical milestones during this time. Based on increased COVID-19 cases in the Pacific Northwest in the spring and subsequent communications with medical staff, VA shifted focus from EHR solution implementation at Mann Grandstaff in Spokane, Washington, to deploying the centralized scheduling solution at the VA Central Ohio Healthcare System in Columbus, Ohio. Additionally, VA revised the EHRM deployment schedule while preserving the 10-year deployment timeline and overall life cycle cost estimate. The revised strategy continues to optimize resources, provides flexibility, preserves momentum, and supports the continued alignment with DoD. Despite the uncertainties of COVID-19, we have endeavored to move forward with no stoppage in work, no pause, no delay, and without safety issues to VA facilities and trainers. On August 21st, we successfully launched CSS, the Cerner Scheduling Solution, at the VA Central Ohio Healthcare System in the face of a national pandemic. We should all be proud of the CSS deployment. The solution makes the scheduling experience and appointment management seamless for our veterans, increases scheduler productivity, and tracks provider utilization to ensure efficient use of VA resources. We're building on that success as we move forward to deploying Capability Set 1.1, or the EHR solution at Mann Grandstaff, VAMC, next month, October 24th. We have completed the infrastructure readiness requirements to support the new EHR solution at Mann Grandstaff. We have also completed the requisite 73 interfaces for Go Live, including the design, build, connectivity, and technical testing requirements. The remaining key milestones are on schedule to be executed in advance of Mann Grandstaff Go Live, which will further hone governance, configuration management, as well as solidify processes. I applaud the ongoing work of my team and commend our partnership with the VA offices, DoD, and the Federal Electronic Health Record Modernization Program Office, also known as the FIRM. One of the biggest achievements of our partnership was the launch of the Joint Health Information Exchange, or JHIE, which now allows VA and DoD providers to securely access healthcare data for their patients seen by participating community partners and health systems. We are maintaining momentum in advance of our mission while sustaining ongoing communications with VA staff, the veteran community, Veteran Services Organization, and Congress. The transformation will support the department's effort to modernize the VA healthcare system and ensure VA is a source of pride for our veterans, beneficiaries, employees, and taxpayers. Madam Chair, this concludes my opening statement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you or the members of the subcommittee may have And again, we thank you. We thank you for your support. It has been unwavered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wyndham. I now recognize Mr. Tinston for 5 minutes.
Thank you. Madam Chair Lee, Ranking Member Banks, distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on VA EHR modernization. On behalf of the firm team, I appreciate your support and commitment to a modernized EHR. The firm is dedicated to getting this large-scale, complex transformation right. I'm confident we will improve healthcare delivery to our nation's service members and veterans while ensuring fiscal responsibility of taxpayer dollars. Since the firm's charter last December, we focused on our mission to implement a single common federal EHR to enhance patient care, provider effectiveness regardless of the location of the care. Today, the firm serves as a single point of accountability and an active partner in the delivery of a common record for the Department of Defense, Department of Veterans Affairs, Department of Homeland Security's United States Coast Guard. We provide value to the departments by allowing them to focus on deploying the single common federal EHR. My goal is to operationalize the firm by delivering capabilities, including the EHR baseline and managing the federal enclave, software releases, and cybersecurity. This is a complex task for the departments, and it's important for the firm to alleviate challenges to deployment where we can. To do that, we lead the analysis and integration of deployment activities at joint DoD-VA sharing sites, monitor and integrate incident management and resolution processes, and identify opportunities for efficiencies and optimization through our Enterprise Operations Center. Further, the firm employs a multifaceted interoperability modernization strategy that includes the Joint Health Information Exchange. The firm's contributions to the DoD's EHR deployment initiatives play a key role in the department meeting its scheduled 2023 implementation objectives. We provided capabilities to the DoD to deploy to 8 sites, the Coast Guard to deploy to 4 EHR sites, and the VA to successfully complete their CSS deployment in Columbus, Ohio. Further, just last weekend, we supported the DoD's EHR deployment of 10 additional sites. We learn from each and every EHR deployment and apply our experience to further improve our delivery. Through our continuing efforts to provide value, we learned how to deliver a better record and provide the IT to get the healthcare workflows right, to improve our communications with users and develop a shared understanding of outcomes with these users, and more effectively deliver training. The firm looks forward to bringing this EHR experience and user focus to the upcoming VA EHR rollout at Man Grandstaff VA Medical Center. Despite the operational impacts of COVID-19, the firm remains focused on driving federal capabilities to implement a single common EHR. In fact, COVID-19 demonstrated the ability to quickly adapt to the changing demands on the system and support providers during the pandemic. While on-site EHR deployment activities were suspended temporarily to clear the way for COVID-19 pandemic response, the firm focused on activities to advance technical solutions, capability delivery, and joint initiatives. For example, during this pandemic, the firm went live with the Joint Health Information Exchange. This expansive HIE network represents more than 2,000 hospitals, 8,000 pharmacies, 33,000 clinics, 800 federally qualified health centers, and 300 nursing homes. This established a single front door to exchange health data between DoD, VA, the Coast Guard, and the private sector. We have also accelerated the adoption of IT tools, platforms, and capabilities to make virtual health more effective and explore joint opportunities to deliver telemedicine via connected virtual care capabilities. In closing, as the son and brother of veterans, I am focused on delivering patient-centered care, providing the greatest capabilities available to support the most informed clinical decision-making. The success of EHR deployment is fulfilling a solemn promise to our service members and veterans. The firm is dedicated to providing healthcare solutions to providers with IT they don't have to think about, ensuring the provider has the right data at the right time for the right encounter where that encounter needs to be executed. I appreciate our continued partnership, transparent communications, and commitment to provide our nation's veterans the care they deserve as we continue this vital mission. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tinston. I now recognize Mr. Dalton for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lee, Ranking Member Banks, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Travis Dalton, President of Cerner Government Services. Thank you for the opportunity to participate today and for your continued engagement and support of the Department of Veterans Affairs Electronic Health Record Modernization Program. This is a team effort, and we are grateful for the opportunity to serve VA and our nation's veterans. Implementing the largest health IT transformation in U.S. history is a complex undertaking. We must deploy to over 1,700 sites, train over 300,000 VA employees, interface to other systems, and facilitate interoperability with community providers. The challenges are many and are not taken lightly. Furthermore, navigating COVID-19 has presented additional challenges to everyone across the country. But under the leadership of VA and DoD, we continue to make meaningful progress. The teams have adapted and shifted to new virtual modes of operation in key areas like training and testing to meet changing needs and continue to propel progress. The challenge is great, but we have made significant strides with your support. VA clinical leaders have come together to create over 900 standards-based workflows across the enterprise. We have migrated decades of data constituting 23 million records into a modern platform. In April, we partnered with DoD and VA to launch the Joint Health Information Exchange, a landmark milestone advancing seamless care across the two agencies. All VA and DoD providers can now exchange patient health data with more than 220 community providers, and that number will continue to grow. In August, we worked with a great local leadership team to complete the centralized scheduling solution for the VA Central Ohio Healthcare System. Currently, over 900 providers and schedulers are using the new system, and hundreds of veterans are using the patient portal. As a member of the Leidos Partnership for Defense Health, we are now operating in a single system across VA, DoD, and the United States Coast Guard at 18 sites that are live with the new EHR system. We innovated quickly to implement production changes in the MHS Genesis baseline to help DoD sites track and treat COVID-19 by embedding intelligence to improve screening tools. Those changes took hours instead of weeks or months and are now available to the VA as well. Finally, COVID-19 has required a more agile approach to the VA deployment schedule. We work closely with VA and fully support the new timelines that will preserve the 10-year implementation schedule. We haven't sat idly by and have worked diligently to make efficient use of taxpayer dollars and meaningful program progress. We are pleased with our accomplishments to date. Building on that momentum, we continue our march forward to the deployment of the electronic health record solution next month at Man-Grant staff. Many lessons have been learned and incorporated. We are ready. This program is truly transformational. Together, we are changing the landscape of healthcare delivery by putting the patient at the center and connecting the continuum of care. We are giving the incredible VA and DoD providers the best tools and data to improve care and services. One example of this is an opioid clinical decision support tool already in use by nearly 1,000 providers in the military health system that has resulted in over 700 interventions since it launched in March of 2020. All of this leads to what is most important: better care and health outcomes for our nation's veterans, service members, and their families. We owe it to those who protect our nation to get this right. We humbly work toward that every day. With your ongoing support, we will continue to do so. Thank you, and I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. A reminder to my colleagues that members should pause 2 to 3 seconds before speaking so all your questions are captured, and I will now recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. I'd like to first open up and focus on Man-Grant staff and the readiness there. And Mr. Wyndham, as you know, we're much anticipated October 24th. In your testimony, you indicated that the design and build is about 99% complete, which is great news. What are the key activities that remain to be completed prior to go live?
Ma'am, you've fortunately invited the right people to this hearing because I brought to my left the Chief Medical Officer who oversees the functional elements and Mr. John Short overseeing the technical. They go hand in hand. And so we're training. We're training up to the last moment. We're testing up to the last moment. We're retesting. One thing we're not doing, the interfaces have been tested, and we're going back and retesting them. The last thing I want is for something to reveal itself in the 11th hour because we failed to continue to assess our previous work. I think that's why I'm very confident about our success that's forthcoming, because we're not resting on our laurels. In the face of wildfires, as you indicated, in the face of COVID, as you've indicated, these are unprecedented and unexpected events, but they haven't deterred. The real resiliency. One thing we saw at Columbus, I can tell you it's not spoke of very often, but it's the motivation of the end users to implement this system. We saw it, it was readily on display in Columbus, and we see it on display at Man Grandstaff. That's the foundational element of how we're going to succeed. These are smart people, and so we're challenging them. We're having them challenge us. Where do you think gaps appear? So there's a myriad of things, ma'am, that you would anticipate, but I can assure you that things are being tested, retested. Training is ongoing, from end-user training to super-user training to solution architect training, the full spectrum. But let me turn it over, if I may, to really the person that's moving the ball out there, which is the functional community. So, Dr. Krupa, you mind assisting?
Certainly. So we are in week 6 of training, end-user training. And as you might remember from previous discussions we've had, it's like a college. You go through 100, 200, 300, 400 level training. So most folks now are getting into the 300 level training, which is really where they see their workflows for their specific specialty. It's really a scenario-based training, so they really get to put all the pieces together. A couple of weeks ago, we completed our mock go live, where the staff were able to go through seeing a patient from end to end, and we're able to use that training to be able to see how it all gets put together. We're also actively doing cutover activities. I'm sure Mr. Short can talk some about the data migration that's going on, but we're also ensuring that all the staff understand what's going to happen at Go Live, understand how things will work, and what their role is in that cutover activity and Go Live as well. As Mr. Wyndham mentioned, we are continuing to test, and we're working down the findings to make sure that we don't have any as few critical or high test findings as possible by the end of this. So we're doing a big push to get all those testing findings taken care of.
Great. Do you, are there any activities that you're nervous about not being ready by Go Live?
Well, I think, getting everyone trained is a challenge because, as Mr. Wood, we had the wildfires, we had to cancel a couple of days of training. We left a 10% overage in our training allotment. We've got a couple weeks at the end of the training before Go Live to try and make those up, but that's going to be challenging. But we're committed to that, and in addition to that, we have adoption coaches and super users who will be on site at the time of Go Live. Actually, we'll have adoption coaches there for the 90 days after Go Live to be able to support folks so that even if they felt unsure after their training, they would still have that at the elbow support for quite a while.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Chairwoman Lee, I'd like to emphasize that element that Dr. Krupa mentioned at the end. The Go Live date is a point in time, is a single date. The transition continues. Cerner is not walking away from us. They will be there, as social distancing allows, shoulder to shoulder. We've got just an incredible amount of expertise available to the clinicians even after that 24 October date that are going to help hone and facilitate understanding even after Go Live date for up to 6 weeks. So I don't want you to think we're walking away on the 24th,
Right.
please.
Yep, absolutely. My time is now expired. I'll recognize Mr. Banks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wyndham, the direction being given to Cerner in their contract seems to be at odds with things that you've said in the past here in the committee about My Healthy Vet being preserved. You've always been a straight shooter, so I'm wondering if you could help me get to the bottom of this, some of this confusion. First of all, you testified in June of last year, quote, we are not getting rid of our patient portal. Then Dr. Stone and Assistant Secretary Jaffer wrote in a letter last month that VA will integrate, quote, va.gov and MyHealthyVet with Cerner read-write application program interfaces. But third, in July, the Cerner contract was modified to direct them to, quote, develop, configure, and test the Cerner patient portal to support an enterprise deployment. Enterprise deployment means all throughout VA, not just in initial sites. The Cerner patient portal has even been renamed MyVA Health, which is very similar to MyHealthyVet. And the contract modification goes on to list the major functions that MyHealthyVet performs. So, Mr. Wyndham, let's be clear. Is MyHealthyVet being replaced?
No, sir. MyHealthyVet is not being replaced. I stand by the statement that I previously made, and I'm going to have Dr. Krupa even give you additional clarity from a clinical perspective. And we welcome coming to brief your staff or update your staff with multiple diagrams and transition plans. I guess I want to make sure I emphasize the replacement of HealthyVet is not in the scope of the EHR modernization contract. We are not funded to replace MyHealthyVet. We have estimates in order to make modifications to MyHealthyVets as being discussed may range from $60 to $300 million. That's not in scope. What was in scope at contract award was us to provide a mechanism and transition the EHR system and provide access to our veterans. What we're doing at this juncture, called Initial Operating Capability Sites, will impact approximately 80,000 veterans, not 9 million that use MyHealthyVet. That is still available. What we are making is automated access points where in the interim, as we transition to whatever the new state of MyHealthyVet is, that requires a requirement. That requires a funding document. That requires things that codify and solidify where we want to take HealthyVet. I have nothing of that right now, so we're not changing HealthyVet. What we have done is put a transition mechanism in place to support go live at IOC. And what it will give our patients is access to their same pharmacy and appointment elements that they are used to seeing in MyHealthyVet, and very much an interim status. I've spoken the word hybrid many times in not only meetings with the staffers, but also testimony here. Well, you have to go through a transition state to get to your end state. The end state regarding MyHealthyVet has yet to be established. It's not going anywhere. If anything, it's ultimately going to be improved as a result of our work here and in conjunction with VHA and OINT and other entities. So what I'd like to do is turn over to Dr. Krupa so she can give you really the full laydown, sir, of what to anticipate as part of our IOC sites. But it's consistent with what we presented to you in the past. MyHealthyVet is not going away. Let me assure you of that.
Great.
So the process for veterans at the time of go live is they will go into va.gov, which is our kind of doorway into VA. If they are a Spokane veteran, if they click on health, that will take them to the Cerner portal where they can refill prescriptions, look at their appointments, look at their healthcare information. If they are not in Spokane and they click on health, they will go to MyHealthyVet, the normal portal. So VA.gov will remain the gateway in, and then the 88,000 Spokane veterans will be taken to the Cerner portal where their Cerner information will be, and then the rest of the veterans will be going to MyHealthyVet, the legacy system.
Okay. Mr. Dalton, I understand Cerner is agnostic on this question, and I also understand that you gave VA a $64 million cost estimate to integrate MyHealthyVet with your EHR. This actually happened after the contract was modified to replace MyHealthyVet, which seems unusual. The price tag also seems high, so can you please expound on Cerner's efforts here?
Yes, sir. So from our perspective, honestly, the veteran experience is the most important thing. So we are the systems integrator. We're not focused on a solution set from Cerner necessarily. We're focused on the best experience for the veteran. So I think alternatives long-term are still being evaluated. Our plan is to go live with our portal at IOC with prescription refill and to continue to evaluate the alternatives associated with My Healthy Vet. From our perspective, you can use integration, which would be our portal, or we could do API integration to the existing portal. So we are agnostic on it in the sense that our sole focus is best for the veteran, whether it be our portal or the existing portal going forward.
Okay, due to votes, we will now take a recess subject to the call of the chair.
To everyone on WebEx, we're still in the middle of a vote. You can turn on C-SPAN and certainly see that. As soon as all that's completed, we'll certainly. All right, everyone on WebEx, thanks for your patience. A couple of the members are back and the chair is on her way right now from the floor, so we'll be starting in just a couple minutes. If anyone from the CAO or support team is listening, I'm unmuting COD3 right now.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are you ready to begin?
Yes, I am.
Please provide a 5
Thank you.
second.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I call this hearing back to order. I would now like to recognize Mr. Takano for 5 minutes for his questions.
Thank you, Chairwoman Lee. I just want to thank you for holding this hearing and for the continued and focused oversight you have brought to the Electronic Health Record Modernization Program over the 116th Congress. I think that this subcommittee creating this subcommittee has shown great forethought as we quickly learned that an IT investment of this size and complexity required sustained attention. I just have a few questions that I'd like to pose. Dr. Fisher, at a previous hearing, Dr. Fisher testified how he was going to address staffing concerns at the Mann's Grand Staff. Specifically, as of last November, there were approximately 108 vacancies, and a little over 40 of those vacancies had been filled. And I've long been concerned with all vacancies at VA, but on this project, I wonder if Dr. Fisher could comment on where we are with these vacancies now, if there's an update.
Yes, sir. This is Rob Fisher. Thanks for the question. We're up to 102 fills for those 108 vacancies, and we're aggressively pursuing the remaining few. Thank you.
Well, that's wonderful that you've gotten most of those filled. And did you find it was difficult to fill those positions with the pandemic, or were you able to kind of give me an idea of what, you know, just I'm impressed by the progress since we last saw you.
Well, sir, I can only speculate, but to be quite frank, I think the pandemic actually assisted our recruitment efforts. There were a fair number of layoffs in the community, and so we were a beneficiary of those layoffs, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your perspective.
Yeah. Now, these remaining, just a handful, do you feel optimistic you're going to be able to find folks to be able to fill those positions?
Yes, sir.
Well, great. You also previously indicated that that you would use the Travel Nurse Corps, or in other words, the acronym is CORE, to make up the shortfalls and minimize the productivity loss expected at go live. Given the concerns about travel during the pandemic, do you still intend to use travel nurses?
Not on the premises, sir. We are so robustly staffed at the moment, we'll probably use the travel nurses for some of the virtual requirements for cutover. That's still in discussion, but we don't require their presence on campus any longer.
Oh, wow. Okay, so so many of these positions were nursing positions that you filled.
Sir, that is correct.
Wow. All right, well, that's impressive. I yield back, Madam Chair. I don't have any further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to now recognize Mr. Roy for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thanks, witnesses. Thanks for your patience through our votes. Appreciate you all being here. Mr. Wyndham, I have a few questions about the interoperability with community providers. And I want to frame this in terms of the Health Information Exchange, the HIE. Y'all have merged the HIEs of VA and the DoD, right? Which gives everyone access to roughly, I think, according to my numbers, 200 partners, if that's the right framing, that were already on the VA side and roughly a dozen that were on the DoD side. Is that roughly correct? And I guess in follow-up, what percentage of the community providers under the Mission Act does that cover? A ballpark number is fine. I mean, do you give a rough estimate? And if Dr. Krupp is better at that.
I'm a 33-year veteran. I believe in passing to the smarter person.
Yeah.
Bill Tinston, I know, is managing the joint HIE, but Dr. Krupp would probably be the best.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't know that I can give you a percentage. Certainly, most of our partners are folks who are associated with our academic medical centers, so they're often regionalized. So I would say that it's probably a good half, but I certainly can't, I can take that for the record. I will say that we are going to be adding Commonwealth to the joint HIE very soon, which will increase our partnership substantially, and Mr. Tinston may want to speak to that even more.
Okay. Or so you said a good half. That was kind of a rough estimate.
A very rough estimate.
Understood.
I
Understood.
can take it for the record.
Okay. I appreciate that. Mr. Dalton, do we have Mr. Dalton? Okay. Mr. Dalton, if you can hear me. You're preparing, to the best of my knowledge, to connect this joint HIE to Commonwealth, which is Cerner's records exchanged. Roughly what percentage of American doctors, offices, clinics, and hospitals either run the Cerner EHR or are in Commonwealth?
So two different questions. So let me kind of define. So in terms of the commercial market share of the hospital market, we're probably somewhere around 26 to 28% plus. But anybody can participate in the Commonwealth network or in other e-health network. So any hospital that has an interest in connectivity or connecting can actually sign up, and that's a service. That's not a Cerner solution. That's a standards-based industry service that's provided. By our numbers, I think that by adding Commonwealth, there'll be another 15,000 plus more providers that will be added via the Commonwealth network. So we view that as a major incremental advancement off of the work that we've already done with eHealth Exchange. So between those two, eHealth Exchange and Commonwealth, you'll be covering a pretty significant portion of the U.S. commercial marketplace.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Dr. Krupa, where does all of that leave us, sort of in a broad context, in terms of the VA being able to exchange records with the Mission Act providers? How many can ultimately be included? I mean, where does that kind of leave us?
So in terms of referrals to community care providers, there is we're not totally dependent on the health information exchange for that information. Information goes from the VA to the provider that we're referring that patient to, that veteran to. So that is already that's already part of the community care process. In addition to that, with the Joint Health Information Exchange, those providers who are in our network can see the CCD, the information on the patients as well. So it gives them another way of getting information on the patient beyond just what they get in the referral from VA.
Okay. Mr. Dalton, and I meant to follow up with you, one quick question. Commonwealth from Cerner and Care Quality from Epic are the two most important records exchanges, and there's been a connection between the two exchanges, but not every provider uses it. How many more providers does this cover? Which way to look?
Yeah, I think, again, just for clarification, we actually participate in all of the exchanges. So we don't prefer or advocate for one or the other, and I won't speak for Epic, but I think they do as well. So from our perspective, we're participating in eHealth Exchange, we participate in Commonwealth. We're more than willing to do that. And so we're agnostic as it relates to that. The most important thing is getting the data and connectivity and getting to those community providers.
Okay, thank you. And I'm coming to time. My time is coming to an end. Are we going to do another round? Okay.
Thank you. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Tinston, in just about every hearing we've held on EHRM with both the DoD and VA, the departments have talked about the Joint Legacy Viewer as the interim solution to interoperability. As I cited earlier, the July 2020 follow-up operational testing evaluation report cites some fairly critical issues with interoperability between the DoD's legacy systems and the MHS Genesis. Most concerning was the finding that, quote, these problems resulted in inaccurate and incomplete data transfers, which caused users to lose trust in both the data of the MHS Genesis and the JLV. What is your understanding of the reason why this issue arose?
Well, the DoD took an approach to converting legacy or altered data over to the MHS Genesis or the Cerner platform. They took an approach that was a minimal amount of patient safety information, the problems, the allergies, the minimum amount. And then using the JLV, we've created access to the legacy or the altered data. And then we put a provider in the middle reconciliation capability so that that provider can then look at the information that's coming over via JLV, make a determination that it's clinically relevant and appropriate to be committed to the new MHS Genesis or the new common record between the DoD, VA, and the Coast Guard. The FOT&E report, which was, and you mentioned early on, ma'am, that I was the PEO DHMS when that came out. That was a fantastic report. That was a huge good news story. The improvements that were recognized in there from the initial operational test and evaluation that the operational test community provided to the program. Those specific items were really about the quality of the data in the legacy systems. I can't make that better. I can present what's available. I can, but I can't make the data, the completeness or the accuracy of data in the legacy record any better than it actually is. But we do have mechanisms to bring it over, and it was a very deliberate decision that the Defense Health Agency and the military health system made to put a provider in the middle of the commitment of the legacy data into the new system. I think if you go even further in that, it recommends that data remain available, the legacy data, and that is a commitment that the DoD is conserving all of the data from the legacy system so that it is available about patients as we move forward.
Thank you. Mr. Wyndham, does the VA anticipate that this same problem could present itself in your implementation?
Ma'am, I'll just start off, and then I'll turn it over to John Short. We continue to learn from the efforts of DoD. They've been more than supportive in sharing their challenges And so we've started down path of improving JLV. JLV is not going away anytime soon. So improvements that we can make as part of this effort are going to be beneficial, obviously, to, as Bill indicated, you know, the quality of data, we may be able to get better. We're looking and assessing. So, John, let me turn it over to you so maybe you can speak to some greater specificity.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, what we've done for JLV after looking at that report earlier in DOD, there was also some concerns about some of the MHS Genesis data moving into the JLV viewers. So we worked with Cerner. They developed some new FHIR, FHIR, Ignite APIs to provide richer data from Cerner into JLV. So that's now improved. We rolled that out a couple weeks ago. As the users have already said, the data is getting there faster, and they're getting more richer data. It also allowed the new schedules from Columbus now to be available in JLV also, so they can see that. The other thing we did was we moved data from Vista Legacy into Cerner. We went through a large cleanup effort to recode that data, clean up errors. A lot of health informaticists that worked for Dr. Krupa and worked for me went through all that data. Then Cerner staff went through that data, and they've actually taken the documents where they've cleaned up that data and provided it back to the VHA legacy side so they can go back to the legacy system to enhance that data. So that's one thing we've done to help improve the legacy and the new.
Great, thank you. I am running out of time, so I'll now recognize Mr. Banks for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Wyndham, we had a good back and forth a little bit ago about My Healthy Vet. I want to clarify your previous answer. You described a situation with both patient portals operating side by side. We know that that is going to happen in the first few sites. My question was about the long term. So can you confirm that no decision has yet been made about which single patient portal VA will select for the long term?
Yeah, I can confirm that that is an ongoing discussion. There's the evolution of Healthy Vet is still ongoing. There's clearly improvements that they want to make in the realm of APIs, FHIR technology, et cetera. We are receptive to that. And so we expect, especially post-go live at Man Grandstaff, to have substantial, robust dialogue about what the additional requirements are, because again, I'm a requirements-based person. So giving you a long-winded answer, say, sir, Healthy Vet will be there. There's no decision about the evolution of Healthy Vet that is documented yet. That's what we'll be working on. But the interim step is the Cerner platform that will capture the essence of what a veteran needs for those 88,000 patients that are impacted by Man Grandstaff go live.
I appreciate that clarification. Mr. Dalton, if there was a decision to eliminate My Healthy Vet and select the Cerner patient portal, and to select the Cerner patient portal, how much do you think it would cost to familiarize between 3 and 9 million veterans with a new patient portal and replace My Healthy Vet, if that were to happen, as the gateway to all the other VA services and benefits?
Yeah, sir, I'm not sure I could give you a number on that at this time. I mean, there's a continuing amount of evaluation that would have to occur. It's also part of the reason that we're doing the IOC work so that we're able to more specifically evaluate. From our perspective, as I noted prior, we're more than willing, and we intend to both upgrade our portal capability that's integrated, if so desired, for Mr. Wyndham's comments, and we're also more than willing to provide API and other data sharing with the existing portal. Those would require detailed technical estimates in order to get to a specific number across the enterprise.
Okay, appreciate that. Mr. Wyndham, I have a series of clarifying questions about your future plans. Your testimony indicates that you have built capability set 1.1 to 99% completion. This capability set is supposed to go live in Spokane in a matter of days. What is the remaining 1% that is incomplete?
Sir, I'm going to answer this way, and then I'm going to defer to Dr. Krupa, because the workflows, the solidification of workflows is an ongoing process. And so you think you're at 100%, and you're still tweaking, if you will. And you're tweaking things based on things that you may be discovering in training, based on questions about workflows, et cetera. So I will never report to you that workflows are 100% complete. What I will offer to you is that our capability set is being delivered by a combination of workflows and interfaces. And so the 73 interfaces are complete. The core workflows that are contained in the core EHR are always under refinement. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Dr. Krupa, sir.
Before you do it, let me move on to the next question. I'll accept that answer as that. Your testimony indicates capability set 1.1 would be installed in Spokane, then Walla Walla, then elsewhere in Vision 20, and then in Vision 10. Is this capability set going to be the same for all of those locations, or will there be some sort of redesign or update for Spokane?
Sir, the 1.1 capability set, upon exiting manned grant staff at the level of success that we anticipate, will go to areas in Vision, or medical centers in Vision 20 and Vision 10 in a simultaneous. We're going to be operating in both of those theaters of operation, if you will.
Okay.
As 2.0 capabilities are readied, because keep in mind, the full 2.0 capability set, Cerner is committed to have that ready by the spring of 2021. That does not prevent us from, as capabilities are ready in the 2.0 portfolio, from injecting those into our 1.1 deployment sooner rather than later. So if we're sitting on a capability that's ready to go and we're going to Cincinnati, then, if you will, it'll be a 1.12 or 1.14 capability set, but that'll be driven by the clinician's readiness.
Got it. One more question. Your testimony indicates that your fiscal year 2021 budget request supports a full deployment in Vision 20 and Vision 10. I want to make sure that there's no ambiguity there. So can you confirm that your objective is to install the EHR, including one or both capability sets, at all 24 medical centers in those visions within a year?
Sir, I'd have to go revisit the schedule. What I'm going to say to you is we're not asking for any additional funding in 2021. We believe that our plan, and we've worked that plan with Cerner. As a matter of fact, it's their proposed plan that we have validated. It captures the schedule, and I can provide the schedules to your team. I just haven't subjected them to memory. But the sites that we've articulated, there's no new money required in 21 to support the delivery of those sites that support the 1.1 capability set. And I know we're starting at the Puget Sound Medical Center in the fourth quarter of 2021, and that is funded out of 21 money as well.
Thank you. My time.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. I now recognize Mr. Roy for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairwoman, and again, thank the witnesses for continuing to stick around. Let me ask another quick question. Dr. Krupa, I didn't get a chance to quite finish because we ran out of time, and I'd ask you a general statement about where it leaves us in terms of the VA, and you gave an answer. And I just wanted to ask, what are the characteristics of the community providers that are not included, and how are you going to cover them with some sort of digital records exchange capability? Like, how's that work?
So if there is a provider who does not have an electronic EHR or has an electronic EHR but is not a partner, when they get and I guess there's two different pathways here. One is if they just have a veteran walk into their office without a referral, then they're going to have a difficult time if they're not part of an exchange to see any information from VA. But if the veteran is going there as part of a referral, the VA has referred that patient there as part of care in the community, there will be information that the VA will send to that provider in whichever way that provider wants. It can be by fax, it can be by a direct email, by paper. You know, they can get that information to the provider. When the provider sees that patient, they can choose how they want to send the information back to the VA, which can be, again, by direct email, by secure email, by fax, by paper, et cetera. So, you know, the VA has to work with the provider where they are in terms of their technology.
Okay. Mr. Wyndham, kind of a broader question about overall cost. Can you walk me through the 10-year cost estimate and schedule? I mean, not line by line, we're not going to be here all day, but the peak spend rate seems to be much earlier than the peak level of activity, measured in terms of the number of medical centers implementing the Cerner EHR simultaneously. Can you explain that discrepancy, or is this subject to change?
Sir, I would answer that like this. This is a major IT project in addition to a major clinical and business transformation. My background in managing IT projects is that even shorter ones, like 5 years, there's substantial efficiencies gained in IT, whether it be through cloud computing, software as a service, things that are inherently create efficiencies in cost savings over a length of a contract. I've been in front of congressional staffers trying to justify why we're paying 80% profit in year 3 of an IT project. It's because efficiencies are like Cerner. Cerner starts looking at how we can gain efficiencies immediately. So we anticipate substantial efficiencies toward the tail end of the contract. The upfront costs in establishing data centers, data hosting facilities, and things like that. We are creating training packages that are going to be effectively shared throughout the enterprise. But we have to write the training packages as part of this initial activity. So there's a lot of upfront work that has to be done that are going to create efficiencies in the long run. In addition, things like virtualized training. Virtualized training will preclude, in many cases, the need to even travel to train. And therefore, travel costs will go down in out years. So, sir, there's a number of efficiencies that would build that profile.
So let me ask this, though. So if you look at the numbers right now, if the spend rate you're currently on fails to decline or flatten off, right? And I get all that stuff. A little known fact about me is I've got an undergrad degree in management information systems and a master's in management information systems, but I've forgotten a lot of that stuff. Congress will suck your brains out, you know, if you're here for too long. But I'm only in one term, and it's already happening to me. But you'll blow through the $16 billion ceiling. Right, and so how do you all plan to avoid that? Like short version, right? I mean, I understand everything you just said and efficiencies and all of that, but you know, explain how you're going to avoid that.
Yeah, it's to be honest with you, sir, it's fundamentals of project management.
Yeah.
You know, our job is cost, schedule, performance, and risk. And so I've got teams that are analyzing costs and are challenging Cerner on their pricing relative to their commercial rates, such that we are managing the entire life cycle profile. So so you don't have an unrealistic amount of work to do in a short period of time at a very low cost. So that's the job that you've instilled in us. I also would offer to you that once we get through the IOC sites, which includes Puget Sound still as a complex IOC site, we owe it to ourselves to relook at things and potentially re-baseline based on what we discovered as part of the IOC elements, and then ascertain whether our estimates at the beginning were in fact accurate. And right now they're revealing themselves as being accurate. I guess I would ask you to ask Cerner that question as well, because I feel good about the way we are managing costs, sir.
Okay. Well, my time has expired.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's ask Cerner that question. Mr. Dalton.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, I can concur with Mr. Wyndham's comments. You know, typically what we see commercially in these types of programs, there are significant upfront costs. You have configuration, development, you've got testing of the solution. In this case, we made significant changes to our processes based on some of the feedback at DoD and some of the reports that we've seen. We added additional expense, we added additional change management activities. The bottom line is that you get leverage and scale over time on a program of this size. And what we've seen commercially that bears that out is you do see your incremental costs go down per facility over time as you improve and become more efficient and get better at that work. I also would note that there's material opportunity on cost savings when you go to a single platform as you start to gain scale across the country and the majority of the VA facilities start to go onto one environment versus being on individual instances of a current system. And so updates, COVID updates like that you push out are much easier to do. And so I think that from our experience, the operating costs decrease and you also see incremental program costs decrease as well.
All right. I'll now recognize myself for 5 minutes. I wanted to turn to the centralized scheduling solution. You know, the project was meant to provide some meaningful improvement into veterans' wait times, and now we're hearing that the project's been deprioritized with no real plan to address the scheduling issues in the near term. Mr. Wyndham, who decided to move away from this accelerated rollout and why, and what considerations went into that decision?
Chairwoman Lee, I can say to you that Cerner scheduling solution is not off the table to deploy separately and independently. In this COVID environment, we had to realistically look at numerous parameters, including social distancing, manpower availability. Social distancing has created, has necessitated additional trainers and additional people are used to augment what we need to do. Yep. So what we're trying to do is put us in the best possible posture for success, is that having 3 battlefronts, if you will, Vision 20, Vision 10, and then Cerner scheduling, we thought the Cerner scheduling decision could wait. I can assure you the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary are committed to getting as many capabilities out into the portfolio as soon as we possibly can. So, ma'am, in no way, shape, or form should I ever imply, or have I implied, that Cerner scheduling is off the table. We're trying to get our arms around Vision 10, Vision 20, and then we want to assess how do we continue to get as much capability into the environment as possible. So, ma'am, hopefully I've given you some assurances that we would owe you an additional discussion that Cerner scheduling is off the table. That decision has absolutely not been made. It's a COVID-impacted decision to open up 2 battlefronts, vice 3, and we'll continue to assess, ma'am.
That's great. One question I just have is, because it is COVID-impacted decision, other offices within the VA have asked for supplemental funding to address these issues. Was that ever a consideration for EHRM?
Ma'am, my background is contracting, and money is always scarce. And so what I don't seek to do is give excuses for why more money. Instead, what we did was challenge Cerner. We challenged ourselves on how could we repurpose. How could we repurpose the assets that we had in order to maintain workforce continuity to do other work? And that's kind of how the Vision 10 strategy started evolving, and the smaller sites and medium sites, because it was real work that has to be done. It may have been farther in the future that we're going to do it, but this is the opportunity to get it done now. It's still within the life cycle cost estimates, and it's real work that we needed to do. And so we sat down with Cerner to work that. So, ma'am, I guess I would ask that you ask Cerner that question as well, because they're as committed as we are to continuing to judiciously spend taxpayers' dollars.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn it to Mr. Dalton to answer that.
Yeah, from our perspective, we're planning to do the same work, different order is how I put it. So moving forward, the activities that we move forward, those were activities that were previously contemplated. So we were able to just simply use those plans and bring forward the work for 20 and 10 simultaneously in order to maintain progress. And honestly, I think we can expedite progress forward. I also would note that we were able to do some interesting things around virtualizing training that I think in this environment will allow us over time to be more efficient than we would have previously contemplated. And so if we're able to prove out and show the virtual training and other virtualization works, I think that we'll be able to save long-term costs for the program over time while providing a better user experience over time as well. Thank you.
All right, just my final question on this rollout, or, the CSS was, can we expect that facilities are going to have to wait for a new scheduling solution under EHR until the EHR is implemented in 7 or 8 years, depending on their schedule?
Ma'am, I can tell you, I've talked to Dr. Krupa quite a bit, and she's been talking to VHA, and clearly more dialogue will be had in the coming months. But we're already looking at what targeted sites are for Cerner scheduling solution based on where they lie in the new schedule, because we want to get them that capability set sooner. Dr. Krupa, any comment in that arena?
Yes, I mean, there's still strong interest in the field for this capability. So I think it's just a matter of getting the commitment from VHA that they want to move forward with that, and really understanding how we get our sea legs underneath us, to use something from Mr. Wyndham's world, in terms of the deployments before we take on this new activity.
Okay. Yeah, we just would like to have an update as you move forward on that, making sure that remains a big priority. Mr. Banks, I'll recognize you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Short, you look awfully bored. So let me ask, what is the status of pre-populating the new EHR with historic patient data from Vista in Spokane? And please distinguish between the core health data and other things like orders and images.
Yes, sir. So currently, we've moved demographics, allergens, problems, and procedures fully from Cerner's Healthy Intent into the Core Millennium EHR, and all that's been validated by both Cerner and by the CMO's informatics staff. Currently, today, medications are currently being moved in there, due to be completed tomorrow. Next is immunizations will start later tonight, and it'll be completed by Friday. And then this weekend through Monday, they'll be completing the validation. That will complete all the historic migration that'll go into the Core Millennium EHR for now, and then beginning next calendar year, the next domains will start moving in there.
And what is the status of pre-populating the data at Walla Walla, White City, and the other upcoming sites in Vision 20 and Vision 10?
So currently, the way we have scheduled for the data migration move is to do it 30 to 45 days prior to a go-live. When Cerner's new systems come online next year, where they have a record sync service, we'll be doing that earlier on. But right now, it's 30 days prior to a go-live, so we wouldn't be ready to move that data yet, but it's staged.
Okay. Mr. Wyndham, your office recently responded to a letter from Senator Tester indicating that quality metrics are still being finalized, but you have developed key performance indicators. How can the metrics still not be finished this close to the first go live?
Sir, we're always assessing what metrics are the best metrics. When we wrote the contract, we have what's called a quality assurance surveillance plan that's part of the contract. Within that, there's KPPs, KPIs, there's metrics that will be used to evaluate the performance, the user experience. Well, I can tell you, as we've trained and we started better understanding the concerns of the clinicians, it evolves what metrics are the right metrics. And so we're actually working with the firm as well and DOD to develop a set of joint metrics that can be used to even evaluate the joint interoperability performance element. So, sir, I guess I would tell you that there's no metric should be set in stone. We should constantly be evaluating whether we have the right metrics, and many of those metrics should revolve around the user experience. So, sir, that's that evolution. But we have metrics in place that are contracted performance parameters that we will use as our baseline assessment tool, but that doesn't prevent the surveys that are presently going on in the training environment. Dr. Krupa's team and the change management team, they're constantly conducting surveys to see whether we are, in fact, evaluating the right things. And then you talk about the metrics that are associated with the legacy systems that may have not traditionally been tied to commercial systems. We're trying to assess what metrics, what quality value metrics may be further tied in that to give the veteran, it's about customer service. And so, and actually end user adoption. So, sir, an evolving element, but we think we have a strong baseline set today.
Will you commit to providing all of the key performance indicators and their actual results from the Spokane Go Live as soon as they're available?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. We'll be fully transparent, sir.
One more question. This one? All right. Dr. Fisher, temporary productivity loss during an EHR transition is normal, but we seem to have an opportunity to mitigate that because manned grant staff is seeing fewer patients due to the pandemic. Can you talk about the timeline to return to normal productivity levels and the timeline to return to normal patient volume?
Sir, thanks for the opportunity to respond to your question. To be perfectly honest, it's impossible to predict with any specificity the degree of degradation of productivity during the transition, during the very first transition to this new electronic health record. As mentioned earlier, we have hired an additional 102 of 108 positions to help mitigate our capacity. We also stood up a medical incident command, and I will reach out to 32 service chiefs and program managers twice a day, and we will go through a rubric of patient safety, quality of care, veteran access to care, and employee satisfaction to make sure we have a finger on the pulse. We do have a marching order, an initial marching order that will put us at 25% of productivity, at least for the first week, and then we'll reassess. So this will be an iterative process, but impossible to know for sure. But we're ready. And with the augmented staff, and focus on access, I think we will be able to mitigate this transition. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Roy for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Just a few more questions, and then we'll be out. Mr. Wyndham, I've gone to you a lot, so I'll come back. I asked you previously how, in the last hearing, how we're preventing vendor lock-in. And you said, and I'm paraphrasing from notes, you're promoting Cerner opening up their gateway to allow better solutions and enhancements to be injected into the product line. What does this mean in practice, and can you give me some examples of accomplishments and how we're achieving that objective?
Sir, I would ask that you also ask Cerner this question.
Yeah.
Is that, when we entered into negotiations, Cerner has over 33 third-party software providers as part of their ongoing efforts. We, VA, made it clear, and there's contract language revolving around innovation to where we clearly can inject innovation, especially, from the smart people in VA that had good ideas, into the product line. Now, Cerner has, if you will, a right of refusal to work the work, get the work done that we need. But it's not going to stop us from advancing the product or the capability set that we need to support our veterans. So within the framework of the contract, there's language that allows us to, if you will, I don't want to say demand capabilities, but request capabilities or establish requirements that they need to fulfill that would potentially open up other interested parties to bid. Things like we've got language in there revolving around APIs and things of that nature that really promote Cerner going out there and getting the best and brightest to augment their EHR solution. So there's language throughout, sir. I'll have to go back and look at the contract and take it as a lookup to come back with some additional thoughts. But that contract is full of language that inspires Cerner to continue to innovate.
So Mr. Dalton, can you comment on that question and what Mr. Wyndham just said? And then specifically, Mr. Dalton, can you, and I'm going to cut to it real quick because we're going to run out of time, that whether or not we're going to have, whether the VA is going to be allowed to choose whether to use Cerner applications or other applications after the EHR is up and running at all the medical centers?
Yes, sir. Thanks for the question. So I just want to be crystal clear on this. I mean, we view our role as an end-to-end problem solver for the VA. We don't view our role as the only potential solution provider out there. And so just to be clear, I mean, we're willing and able and will integrate any solution that the VA thinks is in the best interest of the veteran or the DoD thinks is in the best interest of the service member. And so we've committed to a number of contract mechanisms that put that in writing, including open APIs, which Mr. Wyndham has noted. We also are doing that type of integration with a dental product from Dentrix, Henry Schein Dentrix. And so we've proven that we'll do that when there's a better product out there. And so we absolutely are committed to, it's the VA's program. We're an enabler. We're here to support them and veterans. And if they make an assessment that there's a better capability set out there or a better solution, we will integrate it.
Well, thank you for that. Let me ask just one sort of global question for y'all, Mr. Wyndham, and maybe you, Mr. Dalton, anybody else wants to opine. I think at the end of the day for me, this device, an iPhone, is about 12 years old or something. I mean, I can do all sorts of things on this now, right? I mean, I can check my banking, I can get flights, Southwest Airlines, I get an Uber, I can do any number of things. And the common complaint I hear from all the veterans in the district that I represent in Central Texas, which is quite a bit given San Antonio and the nature of that region, is the inability to go to the VA and seamlessly move in and out, particularly with respect to the Mission Act, and get access to their files and services and be able to do that seamlessly, right? And there's a frustration about it. It's like, well, I see some good stuff in the Mission Act, but I get stonewalled. I hit a wall when it comes to records and stuff. Now, we've got this system in place. We're trying to implement it. I'm fully aware of the complexities of with HIPAA, I mean, everything, in implementing a nationwide system. When can you say that we're going to be able to look our veterans in the eye and say, all of you, every veteran in the United States is going to be able to go seamlessly move in and out of the VA into the private sector and get access to your health records and go get health care without hitting technological hurdles? When?
Sir, I won't go on record with a date.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your question, and I can assure you that's where we're headed. We picked the right partner in Cerner. I think they don't present a rigidity that prevents us from going where you want to go. What we're trying to do is fundamentally and foundationally, I'll just use Maslow's hierarchy, is establish that foundation and understanding of the commercial EHR and then evolve where you're talking about. And so let me ask Dr. Krupa, because maybe she'll go on record with a date. But
I'm sure she's itching to give me a specific date.
Sir, we're moving in that direction. We know exactly where you want to go because we want to go there too. Dr. Krupa?
Yeah, no, I won't commit to a date either. But I do think that this gives us a platform to push that. And I think just the fact that DOD and VA are integrated into the same health record, now Coast Guard has come in, that is going to be a driving force for this to move forward. And, you know, we're fully committed to that. And I think Cerner is committed to that as well as the firm is certainly trying to drive interoperability, not just from within our organizations, but also out to the private sector.
Well, I appreciate that answer. I would just say I do think dates matter. Like, I do think having an end goal where we see that, because, you know, all of our veterans at home, they don't care about any of this stuff, right? They just want to be able to go get their file, go get their health care. And I do think it does matter, and we can look every veteran in the eye and say, look, by 2022, by 2025, by whatever, say this is going to be there, and we're moving in that direction. But anyway, thank you all for your testimony.
Mr. Roy, you didn't ask Cerner.
I do. Oh, well, yeah.
yeah.
Mr. Dalton, could you please answer that question for us? Thank you, Mr. Wyndham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wyndham. I appreciate the question. I'll be brief, sir, because I know you're moving on. So our focus is very simple to your question. And I'm glad you asked it because it's a great question. So the whole point in doing this is to have the right data at the right place and time so that the provider can make a good decision and improve outcomes. You know, we'll have a common baseline with DOD, VA, and Coast Guard. We'll have 30 years of historical data in the same environment. We'll have real-time device integration, which we're doing with VA and DOD. We've mentioned the FHIR integration, and then we'll have community exchange. You add all that together, you're really starting to connect the continuum of care, which is what I believe the heart of your question gets to, is veterans and service members shouldn't have to hunt and peck for their information. It should be transparent and available to them to make good decisions on their own and also with their provider. And so the entire point of this exercise is to do that. We're doing it. Are we getting there fast enough? No, we could always go faster. But I think that we're having real progress in the area. And I'll make one other quick comment. I also think the work that the VA and DOD is doing will impact and lead the commercial sector in a way that it hasn't done on its own. Because I think commercial entities are very interested in referral patterns and working closely with DOD and VA facilities. And so I think that this initiative actually has greater benefit than simply to the federal markets and the veterans, but also to our commercial markets and the industry as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dalton. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. I'd like to, would any of my colleagues care to add any closing remarks? Mr. Roy, you good? Since you're the only one here, so. Listen, the subcommittee, first of all, I want to thank all the witnesses for being here, and I agree with Mr. Dalton that this project has the potential to not just impact veterans and our service members, but the healthcare sector across this country. The subcommittee will continue to oversee these efforts, and we expect the VA to keep us abreast of the progress you're making. This is obviously a major investment of taxpayer dollars in a program that we hope will have long-range effects, not just for veterans, but for our country. In this effort, no half measures can be accepted. And I know we hope that all of you will be as successful as possible, especially in this rollout in October. And with that, we will adjourn, and all members will have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include any extraneous materials. And this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.